Hey everybody, welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got another Transformers review coming your way. This time around, we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Legacy Deluxe-Class Decepticon Dragstrip. So as we always do, let's go ahead and bring that packaging in. Starting right up here at the top, you've got Transformers Legacy, but look, oh my goodness. I think we all know what that means. And coming down, you have that artwork. You've got your big empty hole right there. Decepticon Dragstrip, Transformers Legacy. He is a deluxe class. Transformers up the side. You've got that artwork on this side. On the back, you have Transformers. You have your product shots. You have that. Coming on down. Parents. And then there's your QR code to scan the stats. And then down here you've got all your warnings, and you have the sad baby. Baby's sad because he knows what's coming. And it rhymes with Menasor. And you've got artwork on that side, looking good. Down low, manufacturing information. That is it for the packaging. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what came inside that box. Behold, laid out here before you is everything that came inside that box, and we'll start right here in the middle. You get your little sheet of warnings. And then real quick on the instruction booklet, I just want to point out that you have your transformation instructions in here, but there is nothing at all about the combined mode, about how to convert Dragstrip to his mode to be ready for Menasor. So find that a bit curious, but I can only assume that that's going to be part of the Motor Master instructions when we get that Commander Class Motor Master that's coming out. So you have your instruction sheet, and then you're left with these two accessories. And they're identical guns, but they're really cool. I really do very much like these. So as I say, they are identical, so not a lot to see there. You do have the option, if you want to combine them, you can. So you can, if I get my fingers oriented correctly, so you've got tabs and you've got slots, and then you can just plug them into each other so you can have kind of a double-barreled gun look. And then you can pick down there which port you want to use, want him to hold it. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. Not bad at all, and I do very much enjoy the purple on this. So, you know, hey, they're not the best accessories, but they're also not the worst, and they do hold together very securely. So just a little wiggle there. So there you go. And there's the other side. There's the front. They are blast effect compatible, so that's always a bonus. All right, so that is it for the accessories. So what we'll do now is we will bring Dragstrip in and take a look at him in close-up 4K beauty and look at those details. Here he is, the Stunticon we've all been waiting to see, 1/5 of that Menasor team. This is the Decepticon Dragstrip. So let's go ahead and bring him in and take a look at those details. We'll start right up here with that head. And I will say, I like this. I like the paint. I like the sculpt work. I like that little smirk that he's got going on right there. I think that all works for me, at least. And coming up here, you can see a little bit going on up on that upper body. I do like what's going on with the chest. This looks very nice. This area right here is certainly my favorite part of the bot mode of this figure. So I like how you can see the engine there in the cockpit, and this is a clever little bit of engineering for the transformation. I like what they're doing here. Everything else, kind of from the stomach down, is a whole lot of monolithic yellow. It's not the worst thing, not at all. I do like the look of it, but man, a splash of color here and there would have really broken this up and made it look nice. Oddly enough, I know that it's not, but oddly enough, this reminds me of a muffler and exhaust pipes right here. Kind of weird to see on a race car, but hey, it adds to some depth, I suppose you could say that. And coming down here to the feet, big old spoiler feet. So these are very stable. This is very nice for posing. My biggest complaint about these guys is as I turn it to the side, you'll see you have almost no heels. So you've got to be careful when you're posing. He can get a little top heavy on you and want to fall backwards. So just keep that in mind as you're trying to pose them. And then coming up, you've got, these are the rear tires. So this works. Black rear tires with black mushroom pegs. Okay, I can buy into that. Kind of blends in. No big deal. We'll talk about the rest when we get up there. Not much going on for the legs here. And then you look at this upper body. It's nicely filled in. So you're not going to see a whole lot of hollow areas. Even here under the arm, I mean, you've got this one spot right there, but you've got that nice filler for the bicep rotation there. And then coming up here, looking at the arms, everything's okay. You know, it's just not exciting. And then he's got those big old fists. and you've got racing stripes on the outer forearm. And then right here, this just irks me. Come on, Hasbro, throw a bone here. If you're going to do the mushroom pegs, at least paint them black. This looks bad. It looks bad in bot mode, but it looks even worse in vehicle mode. So probably one of my biggest disappointments here in the figure. And then coming up here, this is one half of that front spoiler. Looks pretty good as far as the paint goes. And bringing him around to the back. Now, I will say that I've definitely seen worse figures. There we go. See what I'm saying about him being a little top heavy? We're going to go ahead and it doesn't take much for him to go down. So a little bit more of a heel back there would have been nice. So you just kind of have to lean him over a little bit. But looking at him from the back, I've seen worse figures, but this guy does look a lot like Swiss cheese back here. There's a lot of holes going on. Most people aren't going to see their figures from the back, so if you're going to do this anywhere, the backside is the place to do it. And you know, couple that with the fact that you do have some 5mm ports back here that you can use in the various poses and various modes. But yeah, he just looks like somebody took a drill to him and had a party. I will say though that the motor down here, the engine looks really nice. Good paint applications on that. A lot of nice chromy style, silverish gray look to it. So that helps break it up. So overall, I mean, other than a few minor nitpicks, I do like the way this guy looks. I think as far as the details go, he's very well done. So let's go ahead and get into that articulation, and we'll start right up here with that head. And yeah, there's nothing. You don't get anything with the head. I will say that his head is hollow, but I don't mind this really because when you get him into car mode, this actually is part of the cockpit and it looks like where the driver is going to sit. So I can completely overlook this. And again, if you're going to have a big hollow head, the back is the place to have it. So articulation, you don't get any wiggle, you don't get any up or down. The only thing that you're going to get is just kind of on that transformation hinge right there, but it's not enough to count. It's maybe 1/2 degree or 1 degree. And you can go all the way around if you choose to do so. All right, you can also angle these if you want. So, if you want to bring them out like that, bring them in a little bit more, you can do that. Angle them to your heart's desire, I suppose. And then coming down here to the shoulders, shoulders will come up just a little bit farther, and you can go all the way around if you choose to do so. You do get nice deep elbow bends on those single joints, so you get over 90 on those. You get bicep rotation, and you don't get anything at the fists. And then coming on down, you do get waist rotation here. Now, I want to show you this. The waist is a little loose. And if I provide this example. However, this is not loose. The waist rotation itself is nice and tight. It'll hold. So I'm thinking that this slop that's in there is going to have something to do with that combined mode. So I'm not sweating this. I'm not worried too much about the fact that that he wiggles and he shakes, because I think that we're going to have a payoff to this later. All the other joints are nice and tight, so no worries on that. But yeah, you do have waist rotation, and then you can get the full Van Damme. You can get a drag strip Van Damme on this guy. Love it. Good stuff. And kicking forward, you can kick forward that far. Kicking backward, you can kick backward even farther. And then for the knee bend, you get 90 degrees on that knee. You get thigh rotation right up here, so you can go all the way around if you choose to do so. And then down here at the feet, you get a little bit. So you can, because of the transformation, you can go down with that heel and toe that far. Essentially, you've just made it the spoiler. And you can get up that far. And then you have severe ankle tilt. So couple that with the Van Damme, you know what we have to do. That's right. It's 80s night at the roller rink. We're going to do the limbo, and we're going to see how low we can go. Yeah, like it. All right, so other than those feet and that head, I think articulation is pretty good on this. I would have liked to have seen something in the hands as far as wrist rotation or wrist swivel. And of course, nab crunch is always on the wish list, but I think for the most part, on a deluxe class figure, articulation is really good on this guy. So now that we got all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get this guy accessorized up and take a look at him from there. Here we see Dragstrip all accessorized using every port that I could find. I'm not going to guarantee that it's every port, but it's every port I could find. So you can see you can do quite a bit of stuff with this guy. He does have some pretty cool ports in the back where you can, pop a few effects in there if you want to. He's got ports in the backs of his legs, under his arms, of course on the ends of his weapons. You can use that as well. One note of curiosity is, unlike a lot of the newer figures that are coming out, he doesn't have any ports on the bottoms of his feet. And I can understand that because the bottoms of his feet, for all intents and purposes, when they are transformed, they're a highly visible part. They're the top of the spoiler. So just kind of a bummer that they couldn't figure out some way to put the ports on the bottoms of his feet so we could have a rocket drag strip, at least in his bot mode. But you've got plenty of stuff that you can do with this guy, so no major complaints whatsoever. Another interesting note is he doesn't have a port in the very back, which most of the new figures do as well. That's the one that I always jokingly say that's where Starscream shoots everybody. So a couple of oddities on this guy, nothing major. And then the last thing that I just want to note is he does have a 3mm port for a flight stand, but it's set up higher than most of the other figures as well. The 3mm port on the other figures is usually right on their butt. This is on Dragstrip's lower back. So just a couple points of curiosity there. But yeah, you can do a lot of good things with this guy, and you can really accessorize him up. So there you go. Now that we have the accessories out of the way for bot mode, let's go ahead and talk about Dragstrip in his alt mode. And before we get too deep into this, I just want to say a couple things real quick. I've got a couple of issues with the vehicle mode, which we'll talk about when we get into it, but credit where credit is due. I think this is a good-looking alt mode, particularly for the price point of a Deluxe-Class. I think it came together really well. Plus, the transformation is fun and easy. Getting him from robot to his alt mode is pretty easy. It's intuitive. It flows well. Getting him back to his bot mode from the vehicle mode, the same thing. So I very much appreciate the transformation on this guy. Let's go ahead and bring him in, and we're going to start right off the bat with one of my first issues, and that is those mushroom pegs. We saw this in his bot mode, but it's more prevalent in his vehicle mode because if you look at the rear tire, this has a black mushroom peg. It detracts from the look. I don't want to spend too much time preaching about it, but I think we all pretty much feel the same way. Why use mushroom pegs? And if you're going to use mushroom pegs, don't do this to us. It just detracts from the overall look. Moving on, taking a look at the front there, you've got that front spoiler. I think it looks pretty good. Got a little bit of sculpt work in there, and then you've got that Decepticon logo with those racing stripes. I would have liked to have seen them continue the racing stripes up through the vehicle, or at least, maybe like a fade out, almost like a flame job or something right there. I think that would have added to the look, but even the way he is right now, I think it looks good. And then coming over here, kind of give that look at the cockpit right there, and then on the side, you've got these nice racing stripes going down the side, which I do like very much. And even though they've got the mushroom pegs, having these big old wheels and tires on the back, I think he looks pretty good there. And now, as we come around to the back, I'm going to show you my second issue with this figure. That spoiler does not align. So I think this is a genuine quality issue. So I was thinking at first maybe it was something that I was doing. So I double-checked, I triple-checked, I made sure that I was doing everything that I should. And you can see that the legs are lined up, but these spoilers are way off. So, if we do a couple things here, I'm just going to do a quick disconnect and show you what I'm seeing. Kind of spread this out. And let me open these up. I think it would be a little bit easier. So essentially I'm showing you transformation at this point. But if you open these up, you have these two tabs that correspond to these two slots. And that's all well and good. And I thought maybe there was something going on with the ankle tilt. Like I just wasn't getting something aligned with the ankle tilt, but it's not. So you can see as you bring the legs together, I have everything lined up properly, and you snap those in, and those look great. They come in, they look nice. You come up here, and that spoiler's off. And there's some type of misalignment. Either the whole location is off, or the location for that tab is off. So that really annoys me. I think that's a quality issue. Maybe it's a design issue. If it was molded properly, it could have happened in the 3D model of the figure. So either way, that's really an annoyance. But let's go ahead and get this guy back together. As far as transformation goes, you just bring these up, collapse them in. You've got a couple of these hooks right there. You're just going to hook them in. Done and done. Collapse those in. And Bob's your uncle. All right, so coming around to the back, if you ignore this spoiler, I think he doesn't really fall apart. This kind of reminds me of Sunstreaker back here. And particularly if you have him at this angle, and you squint, you'll never notice that that spoiler is misaligned. Anyway, coming up here and looking at him from the top, I do like the engine here with what they've done with the paint here. It looks really good, that nice silver. And even in here, this is the back of his head, as I mentioned in bot mode when we were looking at the details. It pulls off a pretty good looking cockpit seat. You know, it's really not that bad. That red right here on the edges, and then you've got that black. And if you look, they've even kind of molded in what looks to be a little bit of a seat back in there. So yeah, it works. This almost looks like you know, a steering wheel. If I really use my imagination, you know, kind of those small steering wheels that they use in F1 or in IndyCar. So yeah, no issues with that whatsoever. And there he is from the top, and there he is from the bottom. Everything comes together on the bottom pretty good, nice and smooth. Here's the muffler and exhaust pipes that I was talking about earlier, which is kind of odd because race cars typically don't have mufflers and exhaust pipes, but still nice sculpt work. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and jump in. We're going to bring his weapons in because there's not really much to talk about as far as effects in this mode. So you've got your 2 ports on the top. Yeah, you could probably throw an effect in there or 2 if you wanted, I don't know, you know, some kind of exhaust thing going on. That kind of looks cool. You know, he's just sitting there firing up. It's almost like a drag racer, like a Top Fuel drag race car now. But I digress. So just take these guns. It doesn't matter which one. They're exactly the same. So plug one in there and plug one in there. And boom, you got yourself a nice armored race car ready to go create some havoc on the highways. And for Dragstrip particularly, this works. You know, he's a Stunticon. He is just that mean-spirited blow civilian cars off the road or human cars off the road. And he doesn't need to hide his weapons. So I think this is good weapon storage for him. So now that we've got all that out of the way, let's go ahead and we'll do some alt mode comparisons and see how he stacks up to some other vehicles. Our first alt mode comparison here is a G1. I do not, unfortunately, have a G1 Dragstrip in my collection. I do, however, have what's left of my G1 Mirage, and hey, he was an Indy car, so it's close enough. These are both race cars, and poor Mirage, he's in some really bad shape, but he's been well loved. Trust me when I tell you that he has been well loved, and I just played the tires right off of this guy. Moving on to our next comparison, this is the Transformers Prime Decepticon Knockout. Representing the Studio Series line, this is the Autobot Wrecker Roadbuster. Next up is Dragstrip, as we saw him from the Combiner Wars line. This little guy here is Pillage. This is Magic Square's take on a Legends-scaled Dragstrip. And for our final alt mode comparison, here is Dragstrip next to a couple of his wave mates. On the left, you have the Voyager-class Bulkhead, and on the right, you have a fellow Deluxe-Class. This is Skids. That's it for the alt mode comparisons. Let's get this guy back in his bot mode and do some comparisons there. For our first bot mode comparison, here, of course, we have the Legacy Dragstrip on the left, and on the right is my G1 Mirage. Poor guy's not in the best of shape, but he's been well loved. Moving right along, our next comparison is Knockout from the Transformers Prime line. Next up is the Autobot Wrecker Roadbuster from the Studio Series line. Next up, this is the Combiner Wars Dragstrip. This next figure we see for the comparisons is named Pillage. This is from the company Magic Square, and this is their take on a Legends-scaled Dragstrip, so you can see how those two guys look together. And for our final bot mode comparison, here you see Dragstrip flanked by a couple of his wave mates. So on the left, you have the Deluxe-Class Legacy Skids, and on the right, you have the Voyager-Class Legacy Bulkhead. So you can see how he looks compared to a Deluxe-Class Wavemate and a Voyager-Class Wavemate. That does it for the bot mode comparison, so now it's time to burn some rubber and get into those final thoughts. So Legacy Dragstrip here, this is a tale of two figures as far as I'm concerned. There are some things that I really, really like about this figure, and there are a couple things that I just find almost unforgivable. Ultimately, do I think he's a good figure? Yes. And ultimately, do I think you should pick him up? Yes. If for nothing else, he's going to be part of the Menasor combiner, which by all indications I think is going to be pretty incredible. And I think if you're a Transformers collector, if you don't get all the figures, you're probably going to regret it down the road. So all that being said, let's go ahead and try to quantify this guy a little bit, and we'll start where we always do, with aesthetics, the overall look of this guy. Right off the bat, those mushroom pegs absolutely look horrendous. Those mushroom pegs are awful. I'm begging you, Hasbro, I'm begging you, Takara, I'm begging you, whoever is making these decisions, stop using the mushroom pegs. They take away from the look of the vehicle. They take away from the look of the figure in general. And particularly when you've got yellow mushroom pegs on black tires, it looks awful. Please stop it. That is the single biggest thing that's dragging down the score on this guy. I think he could have benefited from a few more paint applications, particularly on the front when he's in bot mode, because he kind of becomes monolithic with all that yellow. But I like the way he's sculpted. I like the way that he looks on the shelf. Those mushroom pegs just kill me, though. So I'm going to give this guy an 8 out of 10. In spite of the mushroom pegs, he definitely would have scored higher if they would have sprung for some nicer wheels. I get he's a deluxe class, but come on, throw us a bone here. Moving on to the articulation. I think this guy's got it just about everywhere you need it. Unfortunately, his head is one of those places where I would like to see it. And much like the laser Optimus Prime in this Legacy line, you don't get any up or down or side-to-side tilt. You can just get the rotation, and that makes it kind of difficult when you're posing. This guy, I mean, it would be nice occasionally to have him looking up, looking down, that kind of stuff, so that would be beneficial. And other than that, the only other thing I could really complain about would be nice if we had some kind of heel and toe situation for those feet, particularly maybe bigger heels, just because when you have him standing up straight, he has a tendency to kind of fall backwards because he has such tiny heels. But for the most part, the articulation is done really well on this figure, so I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. Really, mostly the head and the heel toe, in the grand scheme of things, aren't that big of a deal. I can work around them, and everything else, it's where you need it. So 9 out of 10 on articulation there. Moving on to the accessories. I like them. Just cool purple guns that you can put together to make a cool purple double gun. That's really all he needs. And they work well in his vehicle mode. So finally we have a vehicle mode where it completely, in my opinion, makes sense to have those purple guns on the sides of that race car alt mode so he can create some havoc out on the highway. So I do like these accessories. I like the fact that they're blast effect compatible. That goes a long way with me as well. So I'm going to give this guy an 8 out of 10 on accessories. Moving on to quality. This is another one of my major disappointments. As I talked about earlier, that misalignment of the spoiler, it just detracts from the overall look, and it concerns me that that was a quality escape from Hasbro. I think that's the kind of thing that they should really be checking for. I hope, as I always do, that it's just my copy. I hope that that's not systemic, and that's not indicative of the drag strip that you may have in your possession. But I'm really disappointed with that spoiler. The waist is a little bit wiggly. It's a little bit loose, as I demonstrated earlier, but I've got a sneaking suspicion that's going to have something to do with the combined mode, and every other joint is tight, so I'm not going to discount him for that. I'm more than just a little curious about that waist and where we're going with that. So overall quality on this guy is a 7 out of 10, and most of that is attributed to the misalignment of that spoiler. So moving on to our last bullet, which is overall value. I picked this guy up in the wild at a local Target for $23 US. I think he's worth it. He's a unique mold. It's something that we haven't seen before. Is it perfect? No, but he is fun. As I mentioned earlier, he's fun to play with. He's fun to transform. It's intuitive. The transformation flows. You can get him back and forth from one mode to the next really easily. He's part of the combiner. I think he's got a lot of good things going for him, and I think just individually he looks good on a shelf. Minus a few paint apps, I think this guy really stands out. He looks good. So I'm going to give this guy an 8 out of 10 on value. So that brings us to a grand total. Out of 50 possible points, the Transformers Legacy drag strip gets 40 out of 50, which puts him at 80%. So this makes it a recommendation from me. Is it the easiest recommendation for me to make? No, but I do sincerely believe, with a couple of factors there, that you're going to want to pick him up simply because I think this combiner, or I'm really hoping that this Menasor combiner is going to be something special. So with that being said, that's going to wrap up the review. I hope you guys got some good information out of this. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't already done so, please be sure to hit that like button, be sure to subscribe, and leave some comments. Let us know what you think about the channel, what you think about Dragstrip himself. So until we see you guys in the next one, take care.